cardiocephalic trunk, left common carotid, left subclavian artery, right common carotid, and right subclavian. And subclavian artery continues into axillary artery at the level of external edge of the first rib, that is first rib, and it is that is a body between subclavian and axillary artery. And the subclavian artery has three departments. First, that is from the beginning till enter into interscalenal space. Do remember that we have three scalenus muscles. Musculus scalenus anterior, it's attached to the first rib. Musculus scalenus medius, the same attached to the first rib, and musculus scalenus posterior attached to the second. And between the anterior and medial scalenus muscles, we have interscalenus space, spatium interscalenum. This is spatium interscalenum. And now, departments of subclavian artery from the beginning to enter into interscalenus space, inside of this space, and outside from interscalenus space. In first department, we have arteria vertebralis. Vertebral artery goes to transverse processes of cervical vertebrae. They have opening, foramen transversarium, and this artery pass through these transverse processes and goes to the skull and come here through foramen magnum, and in skull it's joined with the same artery from opposite side and forms arteria basilaris. And arteria basilaris then subdivides into two branches, arteria cerebri posterior. Next, I continue this diagram. Now we will speak next about subclavian. Next branch, that is internal thoracic artery, arteria thoracica interna. This artery goes on posterior side of ribs, near of sternum, 2 centimeters laterally from sternum, and it gives anterior intercostal arteries, arteria intercostalis anterior. They are usually six in number. The same it gives arteria pericardiaca phrenica. It supplies pericardium and diaphragm. And two terminal branches are arteria muscula phrenica. The same supplies diaphragm, and superior epigastric artery. It goes to anterior abdominal wall. They are branches of internal thoracic artery. And last, in first department, that is tyrocervical trunk, truncus tyrocervicalis. This trunk gives arteria thyroidea inferior. Today you already know what arteria thyroidea superior. And now arteria thyroidea inferior. The same it gives arteria cervicalis ascendens and arteria suprascapularis. Three branches start from tyrocervical trunk. Then, in second department, in interscalenal space, subclavian artery gives one branch, that is costocervical trunk, and this trunk gives arteria profunda, colli, deep artery of the neck, and arteria intercostalis suprema. And this artery subdivides into first and second posterior intercostal arteries. Here was anterior, and these two posterior intercostal. They make anastomosis. Anterior and posterior arteries make anastomosis. And last, after interscalenal space, subclavian artery gives transverse artery of the neck, arteria transversa colli. They are branches of subclavian. And now, internal carotid. Arteria carotis interna. It have not got branches on the neck, goes to carotid canal in temporal bone. If you remember, it is apertura externa canalis carotici, and this one apertura interna. And carotid artery leaves canal, then it passes through foramen lacerum and goes to cranial cavity, continues into sulcus caroticus, and at the level of optic canal it gives large branch that is ophthalmic artery. Ophthalmic artery goes into the orbita, and it gives central artery of retina, arteria centralis retina, arteria ciliaris goes to eyeball, arteria palpebralis, medialis and lateralis goes to eyelids, arteria lacrimalis goes to lacrimal gland, and to ethmoidal arteries. Arteria ethmoidalis anterior and posterior goes to ethmoid bone, and then continues to nasal cavity and supplies anterior part of nasal cavity. Remember, posterior part of nasal cavity supplies by, today you already answered, sphena palatina, arteria sphena palatina. Arteria sphena palatina supplies posterior part of nasal cavity, and anterior part, arteria ethmoidalis, anterior and posterior. Next, after that, internal carotid artery goes upward and subdivides into terminal branches. That is, end of internal carotid artery, arteria carotis interna, and terminal branches are arteria cerebri media, arteria cerebri anterior, arteria communicans posterior, and arteria choroidea. Arteria choroidea. The same in opposite side. Internal carotid artery, cerebri media, cerebri anterior, communicans posterior, and arteria choroidea. Anterior cerebral artery joined together with the help of communicating branch, arteria communicans anterior. Now, I will draw next two vertebral arteries which join together and makes arteria basilaris. Here it is arteria vertebralis. Here it is the same arteria vertebralis. And this is arteria basilaris. And arteria basilaris subdivides into arteria cerebri posterior and arteria cerebri posterior makes anastomosis with posterior communicating artery, arteria communicans posterior from internal carotid artery. And we receive cycle at the base of the brain, which help to supply blood brain. For example, if closed, for example, with the help of embol, closed carotid artery or vertebral artery, in this case, blood, for example, here it is closed, this artery closed. In this case, blood continues to brain through posterior communicating, anterior communicating artery. Clearly, that is very important that base of the brain has arterial cycle. What else? Three arteries goes to cerebellum, superior cerebellar artery from basilaris, inferior anterior cerebellar artery, the same from arteria basilaris, and inferior posterior cerebellar artery, it starts from arteria vertebralis. Here it is arteria pontis, supplies pons, and arteria spinalis anterior joined together and forms unpaired artery. Arteria spinalis anterior is unpaired. And paired posterior spinal artery, arteria spinalis posterior. These three spinal arteries supply spinal cord. These three arteries supply cerebellum, and these three arteries supply brain. And this diagram you need to draw. Give me your textbook. It is. Oh, you will prepare internal carotid and subclavian artery, and this diagram that is arteries of the brain you need to prepare. All another diagrams for your understanding. Till here, axillary artery not necessary to answer. Clear? Now let's go to the museum.